a song you could sing forever, and I wanted to rhyme and to bend phrase and time into something clever.
I have a new favorite video. Bill Nye turns a ham into a turkey. Pat Robertson is ashamed. It's by the Preaching Atheist. And if you have not subscribed to him yet, I suggest you do. I strongly suggest you do, not only because it's got really, his videos have this really cool music at the end and really great little credits that roll up, you know, at the end. But because he's just awesome to listen to, and I wanted to, you know, put some clips up, you know, from this latest video that I think is so wonderful to show just how incredibly awesome he is. And, you know, check him out. Okay, so here's some of the clips that I wanted to show.
Let's face it, there was a bishop in the Middle Ages there, 1800 something, who added up the dates listed in Genesis, and he came up with the world had been around for 6,000 years. There ain't no way that's possible.
I love it. I love it.
The time we come off of that stuff and say this isn't possible. But we've got to be realistic that the dating of Bishop Ussher just doesn't comport with anything that is found in science. And you know, you can't just totally deny the geological formations that are out there, the rock formations and all the things that go all over the world, especially the bones. Let's be real. Let's not make a joke
What
of
I find particularly hypocritical, definitely a double standard where Pat Robertson is concerned. He will no longer accept young earth creationism of Genesis. That's where they get it. That's where they get their science, is Genesis. And then bits and pieces here and there throughout the Old Testament. And I can't, right off the top of my head, think of anything in the New Testament that they can draw from. Yet, he will tell Ham and others like him, the other fundies, stop with the young earth creationism. The earth is much older. We know it's much older. Science. And I loved, he talked about saying science. They've proven, such as the fossil records, that they're 65 million plus years old. Yet, he'll say this part of Genesis is BS, but then he will go right over to Genesis chapter 19 when he gets on his diatribe about gay community, the LGBT community, homosexuality. And he will pull from chapter 19 of Genesis the fear shit, you know, that whole hate-mongering thing, saying that America is going to fall because of homosexuality, and he will cite chapter 19 of Genesis. And he will cite it as fact, as if it really happened. Now, first of all, anyone who's done a remote study, just a cursory study concerning Sodom and Gomorrah, that there's a huge argument still in the archaeological community today. Most do not believe the cities ever existed. They haven't found anything that lets them believe that they existed. And if they have so recently, I know that it's still a whole big discussion about whether or not it actually was there. So the same science, or the same science methodology that debunks Genesis chapter 1 and 2, young earth creationism, also debunks anything to do with the existence of Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the first thing, just the fact that they were even there. But when I did my study on epigenetics here a couple of weeks ago, talk about the epimarks that will turn the genes on and off, certain expressions on and off, and this is why being homosexual or bisexual is as natural as being heterosexual. I mean, there's nothing unnatural about it. It's what the genes have done. It's nature. In that study, and I can't quite remember the numbers, but because of almost the rarity of those switches, the way they turn on and off for homosexuality, for bisexuality, that the numbers of homosexuality in our community, or in our nation at least, I believe, what is it, 7% or 8%? It's really super low. I mean, it's really super low. It's still very natural, but just very low. Well, now we have 2 cities. Now, when you listen to certain theologians, they'll estimate the populations. I've heard it as low as 20,000. I've heard it as high as 80,000 in Sodom and Gomorrah. But then as you read chapter 19, it talks about that God's going to destroy not only Sodom and Gomorrah, but he's going to destroy the cities of the plain, so all the surrounding cities. But the numbers don't match. The science says no. Just as it says no about young earth creationism, it says no about Sodom and Gomorrah as far as the number of homosexualities found in the city. In fact, you'll find that only Lot and his daughters and their husband and his wife were the only 2 cited heterosexuals in the entire area. Later on, we find that, I think it was a Paul, I can't remember the New Testament, where it talks about where Lot's soul was heavily vexed because of all the wickedness around him. Now, let's just take the little number of 20,000 population. And let's say if there was only 10%, now the numbers are less than that, but say there's 10% that are homosexual or bisexual, just 10. That means 2,000. That leaves you with, what is that, another 18,000 people who are heterosexual. But yet when you read the story, they couldn't find any. You got this city of 80,000 people in Sodom and Gomorrah, this whole area, and they can't find them. So first of all, geologically, well, not geologically, but archaeologically speaking, we can't find Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the first thing that science has been trying to do and can't do. But the next thing is the numbers. Do you really think that anybody that walked in that city who was a homosexual, displayed homosexual tendencies, would have survived? No! They would not have. They could not have. Yet, we have this entire city, 80,000, 20, 50, 80,000 people, all homosexual, except for Lot, his wife, his daughters, and their husbands. The numbers aren't there. So I find it interesting that Pat Robertson is going to criticize, and I'm glad he did. Yeah, please, shut the hell up, fundies. Is begging Ham to shut up with this young earth creationism, while at the same time will use Genesis 19 to say, see what God has done? He judges countries, or he judges nations that have homosexuals in them. Pat! Really? Man, if part of it's bullshit, it is all bullshit. And Moses wrote it. Supposedly God gave him all this shit. But we have the 5 books of Moses, the law of Moses, the Pentateuch. You got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. All of it filled with hatred and bigotry and indiscriminate killing. Could it just be, Patty, old boy, that if Genesis 1 and 2, the creation account, is incorrect, as you have so aptly put it, that all of it, including the hatred against homosexuality, the killing of anybody with opposing ideologies, all of that is also false? That it's ridiculous by science as well? Well, of course it is. Of course it is. Look, it's all or nothing, guys. It's just that simple. If one part of this book cannot be trusted, then you have no way of knowing that any other parts of it can be trusted. Now, it's all or nothing, guys. It's just that simple. If one part of this book cannot be trusted, then you have no way of knowing that any other parts of it.
There's a lot more in his video. I really suggest you go over to the Preaching Atheist channel and check it out yourself to hear the whole thing. You have a brain
and is capable of thinking critically. This is why Texans do not want their children to think critical. They're afraid that they'll rebel against their parents. No, they're not going to rebel. What they're going to do is see that this shit that you've been trying to cram into them since they were kids, this fear of hell of the so-called loving God who hates anything that's not white, hates anything that's not straight heterosexual. If you don't agree with them, then you're a bad person. They're not going to accept it any longer. They're going to be taught how to use their brain. You need to be taught how to use your brain. You can think. So damn.
So there you go. The Preaching Atheist. Really, subscribe. I have been subscribed to him since practically day one, and this is probably my favorite video yet on YouTube. So check it out. Bye.
It's all or nothing, guys. It's just that simple. If one part of this book cannot be trusted, then you have no way of knowing that any other parts of it can be trusted.